There we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome into another Friday afternoon AMA live stream. What is going on, everybody? Holy comments already. Welcome in. Welcome in. What's going on, everybody? How's the week been going? How's your Friday? We are one more week closer to the NFL season. When the Hall of Fame game is what, like in a week? Hall of Fame game is when is that? Why does it just not tell me what day it is? What an introduction. August 1st. We are less than a week away from the Hall of Fame game. Let's go. Let's go. Football is right around the corner. All right. Terrible introduction. So we're just going to move forward with questions. Here for the memes. What's up, my man? All right. Peter is in here as always. Peter's the first person. I think he's probably got notifications on for the Friday live streams. Peter's always the first one in here. Appreciate you so much, my man. Happy Friday, and thanks for all the great content. Who you like in the 2.05 range in one quarterback rookie drafts? Probably looking like Pearsall, Polk, Lloyd, Adonai Mitchell. Too big a reach for your boy Davis or Burton? So if all those other names are there, I would take those other wide receivers over Ray Davis and Jermaine Burton. I do really, really love myself some Ray Davis, but the other wide receivers and, Marshawn Lloyd, even like Jalen Wright and stuff, if he's there too, are more interesting to me than Ray Davis and Jermaine Burton. If Leggett is there, I would take Xavier Leggett over all of these guys. But then my next pick would be Jalen Polk is where I would go. Just because I think that he has a very secure role as the wide receiver one in New England. And hopefully he can grow with Drake May. There's already been good training camp and mini camp reports of Polk coming in and just like establishing himself as like a leader, a veteran presence already as like a rookie. So those are good things that you like to hear. Second round pick. So a lot of good things going for Jalen Polk where I would take him. Pearsall, I think, is close. Adonai, I like, but he feels kind of like he's, behind Michael Pittman. I don't really like that. Josh Downs is there too. Anthony Richardson is a more mobile quarterback. So I would take Jalen Polk out of all of the guys that you listed here. But if Leggett is there, then I would take Xavier Leggett. And that's how I would roll. Polk is going to shred, says here for the memes. Toronto Dave, what's up, my man? All right, Kevin thinks that he's contending this year, and the Christian McCaffrey owner just put him on the block. He has the 1.05 this year, might be able to contend without him, but should he offer that pick for CMC in a 12-team Superflex? I would trade the 1.05 for Christian McCaffrey in a Superflex league. I mean, you're past Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors at that point. I believe that they would be 3 and 4 in some order. So you're looking at, one of the quarterbacks in May McCarthy, Odunze, or Bowers. If you're contending this year, and especially if you think that you can contend without him to where this is just kind of like a luxury trade, I'm still willing to do that because then your team is probably that much more of a contender. So I would be willing to trade the 1.05 for CMC. And if, terrible things happen to him or the rest of your team, I feel like that based on you saying you might be able to contend without him, I think that means that you have other good quality assets on your team to where you can make moves to either stay competitive or have valuable enough assets to where you could maybe not tear it down, but just do some quick reloading stuff for 2025. So I'd be willing to take Christian McCaffrey over the 1.05 as a contender and go for it, man. Go for the chip. Robert, who would you target for a wide receiver 5/flex starter based on current KTC rankings? And what do you think you can buy them for? Opinion on best value, most upside. Cooper, McLaurin, Deontay, Godwin. So I'm assuming that's Amari Cooper. Because I've been getting tripped up on Amari versus Cooper Kupp recently because people but Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin. So actually the one that I like the most out of all of this is Chris Godwin, just because I think that he's been super consistent over the past few years, basically since like 2019. He's had, I think it was like 65-70% of his games over 10 PPR points. And I think that he's going to, there's a lot of talk about him returning to his slot role in this kind of McVay-ish style offense, running the Cooper Kupp role for Tampa Bay. I think Mike Evans is obviously going to see a regression in what he had last year. I mean, he's been insane every single year, but I don't think he's repeating what he did touchdown wise. And Godwin's been due for some positive regression for quite some time now. So I think that, and he's the cheapest. So out of all these guys, I think Chris Godwin would be my pick. All of these guys seem like they're just like, you can just buy them for 1 second round pick. Maybe it's a second and a third or whatever, but like a second round pick feels like a pretty good starting point for them. And then you can kind of see where the rest of that trade takes you. And I'd be willing to do that for Amari as well too. And I would be willing to do that for Deontay. I'd be willing to do that for Terry McLaurin. I think McLaurin is last on this list for me. So if I were to rank them myself, it would go Godwin, Amari, Deontay, McLaurin. But I'd be willing to pay a second for all four of these guys. But of them, I would go for Chris Godwin. Now, if you're shooting for pure upside, I still think it's Chris Godwin, but like I think Amari would enter the conversation in terms of like big play explosiveness. Deontay's interesting as well, just because Canales is talking about like, oh, who's the one guy that we should get the ball to on our team? Deontay Johnson, which makes sense because he's a good wide receiver. But I would go Godwin, Amari, Deontay, McLaurin is my order, and I would pay a second for them. Here for the memes with the $2 super chat. My man, thank you so much. Would you trade Moss, Connor, Brian Robinson, or Zamir White for Jalen Polk? I would trade all of them except for Brian Robinson's the only one that really gives me pause because I think that B-Rob's going to be in for a really good year this year. But I'd trade the other three for them for Jalen Polk. With Moss, I think that you're removing yourself away from the kind of one season wonder. Zamir White's kind of the same thing too, but I think Zamir feels more safe. Zamir feels safer for volume. I don't think that he's going to do well with that volume, but he feels safer on that volume or potentially predicting him to get that volume. Moss is still competing with Chase Brown. I think that Moss is the leader. I think he should be. And I would think that he goes into that role. And if he does, then I think he's more valuable than Zamir White. But Moss has to compete with Chase Brown still. Connor, I think, is going to be fantastic. He's still going to be really good. But as soon as he gets hurt, and we know that he's been dealing with injuries for the past few years, basically seems like he misses a couple games every year. He's the oldest of this group as well, has Trey Benson to contend with and kind of hold back from taking into his workload. So from a dynasty standpoint, I'd be willing to take Jalen Polk over James Conner as well. But it's just Brian Robinson's the only one that really gives me pause. I don't think I would trade B-Rob for Polk. I get it. I think that makes sense. I think that's a good one for one trade. But I'd be willing to trade the other three for Jalen Polk. And it would probably go Moss and Zamir White would be a toss-up, then Connor if you're competing, then B-Rob. If you're not competing, I'd probably get rid of Connor first, and then Moss and Zamir. Or you could hold on to Connor. Even if you're not competing, you can hold on to Connor, wait for him to produce, and then his value might go up a little bit. And then if you just don't want to see Moss and White not do well, and then their value drops. I don't know. Maybe you leave it up to who the other person wants. Or maybe the other person prefers one of these guys and they'd pay Polk plus for one of them. Like Zamir, they pay Polk and a 25-second for Zamir White. That'd be better than trading Polk for trading Zach Moss just for Polk. Now with another $2 super chat, Zamir White or Ramondre Stevenson for defending champ. Ramondre. This one's easily Ramondre Stevenson. Just because we've already seen Ramondre do it. He was a RB1 in 2022. He was a top 20 running back last year before he got hurt. And now he's in a much better offense than what he was last year, just because of the pieces that they've added with Drake May and Polk and Baker and KJ Osborne. All the stuff around Ramondre has worked out really well. He just got paid. I'd much rather have Ramondre Stevenson than Zamir White for redraft, for dynasty competing this year, for all of it. Give me Ramondre. All right. Philip, big quarterback problem with stacked wide receiver, running back, tight end, contending runner up in 2023. All right, let's get you that chip this year. Non-PPR, 12 teams, super flex, start 9. Kyler, Bryson, Fields. What draft capital would you pay on top of 103 to get 1.01? Would you add a projected late 25 first? Caleb and Daniels are going 101, 102. Marvin Harrison Jr. is expected to fall to me at 3. Your draft capitals are all 25s plus an extra second, all 26s plus an extra first and second, or hold tight and hope that Bryson Fields pan out. League does not trade quarterbacks, so drafting is the only option. Thanks, Addison. Love the show as always. Thank you, man. So you're expecting Caleb and Daniels to go 101 and 102. Interesting. I would not add a late first to the 103 to move up for one of those two quarterbacks. I would not add a first. I'd add a second if you're expecting, especially if you go up and get 101. If you're expecting both of those picks to be quarterbacks, I would add that extra 25 second. Especially if one of those teams doesn't necessarily need a quarterback, then they might be more willing to do that and maybe more willing to move back for a little bit cheaper. So I'd throw either the 25 or the 26 second, whichever one you think would be a stronger deal to get it done. Or if you want to try and go cheaper with the 26 second, then move to the 25 second. If he doesn't take the 26, I would not add a 25 first. I would not add the 26 first. Because at the end of the day, I would still like Marvin Harrison Jr. is a heck of a consolation prize. And then I would figure out something later. I would try to either, you're stacked at wide receiver, running back, tight end. You just added Marvin Harrison. I bet you could trade one of those veteran pieces for, a quarterback or something like that. Like maybe you can flip Marvin Harrison Jr. for Dak Prescott. Or Trevor Lawrence or somebody like that. Maybe that's how you attack it. Instead of trying to finagle the rookie draft, you go for trading away the vets. So, but I'd be willing to add one of the seconds, your 25 or your 26 second to move up. I would not add a first. And at the end of the day, if you get Marvin Harrison Jr., then you get Marvin Harrison Jr. That's just kind of how it would have to end up, I think. Tally ho, couldn't hop on live for a bit. Love the content. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. If you have a question or anything, if you have time to stick around, if you have a question, I'll look here at the bottom if you want something answered for the super chat. But appreciate you so much, my man. Robert, would you move T. Higgins to get Travis Etienne? Higgins and Kirk are your 4-5, but your running backs are Cook, Warren, and Singletary. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm really high on Travis Etienne. I think that he's just like a top 5 fantasy and dynasty running back that nobody really cares much for. Like he's not sexy, and some of his production last year felt kind of touchdown dependent. I get that, but like he's still like a workhorse with good receiving volume. He's young enough ish. I'd be willing to trade T. Higgins to get Etienne. Does that move Kirk to your wide receiver 4 spot, and then Etienne effectively becomes your your RB1? I think he pretty easily slots in as your RB1. Then you have James Cook and Warren and Singletary as flex options with Christian Kirk, depending on how many people you start. I'd be willing to take Etienne on this one over T. Higgins. I'm down with that. Tim, thanks for re-ranking the rookies late last week. Super helpful. I have the 106, which I will probably get BTJ. Love that. Also have the 112. Looks like Daniels, Leggett, or Coleman. Still like them in that order. Yes, I do. That's the way that I would go for it. I like the upside of the rushing quarterback. Even like in a one quarterback league, it's usually the rushing guys that are the easiest to play every single week just because of that rushing floor, and they have the highest upside. So I think the Daniels, with his rushing ability, is going to come in. I think he has the shot to pretty easily come in and immediately be like a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year, if not even borderline top 5, if the rushing production and touchdowns kind of come his way and the offense over exceeds expectations. That wouldn't surprise me in the least if Daniels was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. So yeah, I'd still go for those 3 in that order. And yeah, BTJ at 106 is fantastic. I love that. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Spock 498 inbox offer. Give Alvin Kamara, get Jaden Reed. League has no interest in Jaden Reed, would be stuck with him. Man, what a freaking roster, dude. I think this is a good way to get off of the age of Alvin Kamara and go get Jaden Reed, but I don't like that you say that no one has interest in Jaden Reed, so you'd be stuck with him. Not to say that it would be bad to be stuck with Jaden Reed. I like Jaden Reed, especially if you have him as your wide receiver 6. um, but that does hurt your running back position in terms of your starting lineup. Not that that necessarily matters all too much. But we are getting into that point where starting lineup is starting to kind of matter. um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is honestly, this is a toss up to me. If you feel like you want to stick with Alvin Kamara for the to hold as your RB2, I'm fine with that. If you like to get out of Kamara as an old aging running back and you want to get Jaden Reed, I'm fine with that too. And then if you want to try and maybe move one of your other wide receivers for a better running back than Kamara, then you could. It feels like I hate saying just like leave this up. I'm leaving this up to you. I mean, at the end of the day, it is your team and it is your decision. I'm just a third party opinion. But this really does feel like it comes down to your personal opinion on if you would much rather stick with Alvin Kamara as your RB2. I think he's much better than Austin Eckler. I'll put that out there if that helps make your decision. I don't have a lot of high expectations for Eckler this year. I think B-Rob is the RB1 in that backfield. And Eckler might just kind of like really be on his way out of the league entirely. So I would much rather have Kamara as my RB2 than Austin Eckler. And if that's kind of the tiebreaker to where you'd rather have Kamara as your RB2, and then have Jaden Reed just chilling on your bench, then I'd probably keep Alvin Kamara. Especially if you think that you're just going to be stuck with Jaden Reed. Like I don't ever want a dead asset. No question, just here to listen in. Very cool, my man. I appreciate you just tuning in, just having some background noise for lunch or work or awesome. Cool, man. Cameron, Superflex 10 by 10, half PPR, was needing a QB3 behind Lamar and Love. Traded Deontay for Russell Wilson. Was told I made a bad deal. What's the verdict? It feels slightly in the other person's favor. Like, I bet you if you put this poll on Twitter, it would probably come out 60-40 in favor of Deontay, maybe 65-35. But I don't think it would swing all that much more. Because I do think Russell Wilson is undervalued, but his leash feels very short with Fields still behind him and Russ just kind of like on his own kind of prove it deal in Pittsburgh. I mean, in terms of like going to get a QB3, I think Russ is a fantastic option for a QB3 behind the other two that you're never going to start. You're just playing for bye weeks or if one of these guys gets hurt for a week or two. Love Russell Wilson from that regard. That might have been a slight overpay. I don't think it's a bad deal. Might have just been a slight overpay. But, if Deontay was your 5 or 6 or something like that, then that's not – I'd understand going for the QB3 from that regard. Don't think it was a bad deal, but I do feel like it was a slight overpay. A little more than market value, but not a bad deal. Sir Nick, 98, have 102, 3, 8, 11, 12, 201, 202 in a rookie draft, Superflex, half PPR, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, quarterbacks, A-Rich and T-Law, London Pickens, Flowers. Pass on Daniels and take Marvin Harrison Jr. and Neighbors, then Knicks later, ? 6, your wide receiver 6 is 7? Whew. Yeah, I understand that a lot more than. I understand that a lot more than Cameron. Holy crap. All right. Sorry, Nick. Back to you. So I do have Jaden Daniels a tier ahead of Malik Neighbors. But it's not like it's not like anything crazy. Like, I don't think it's like a massive tier drop. I just think that Jaden Daniels as a fantasy and dynasty asset has an opportunity to gain a ton of value this year, whereas Neighbors is already a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. I don't really know how much he can go up from that, especially in a Giants offense where he might not be a super productive rookie, maybe not even a super productive sophomore next year. And then we're talking about him like we are Olave and London right now, just kind of hoping that he does something, hoping that the Giants get a different quarterback. Maybe that's what puts him in the London's tier, or, if they're still stuck with Daniel Jones or somebody else, then he's in the Olave tier, stuck with a mid to below average quarterback. Then that could hurt Neighbors' value. But I think Daniels is only really going to be able to go up. You don't necessarily need Daniels, though. So I'm not opposed to this. Marvin Harrison Jr. for sure at the 2. And I would even say if Marvin Harrison were to go 1, and then I would take Caleb and Neighbors. I'm fine with that. So yeah, I would take those 2. Then are you looking at like Jonathan Brooks at the 108? And then, you might be able to sneak away Bowers at the 8 and then Brooks at the 11, or BTJ at the 11, Knicks at 12, grab 2 other wide receivers at 201, 202. Like, I'm not opposed to that. I just think you're going to be able to get a lot of other wide receivers to where if you want Jaden Daniels, then you can get that instead of take Bo Nix. I'm not against your plan. I'm on board with the plan. I just really like Jaden Daniels. So yeah, but I'm on board with it. Then take best available 8. Maybe you get BTJ at 11 or Brooks at 11 or Worthy at 11. You're guaranteed probably one of them. Knicks at the 12. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Sorry, that was a really long answer. What should I throw on top of Zamir to get Ramondre? Don't have much capital, just the 310. I do have some pieces like Gibson and Alec Pierce. I would throw all 3 of those at Ramondre with Zamir. Whatever gets it done. I have all 3 of those. If you got to push in all 3 chips with Zamir to go get Ramondre, I'd do that. Because I don't really value any of these guys. Like Gibson's the best value, best asset out of all 3 of them. But even then, he's like a third. He's just a handcuff. It might be nice though to hold on to Gibson if you can, because then you have the handcuffs for Ramondre. So if you can get it done without tossing in Gibson, that might be beneficial too. But at the end of the day, it's almost like whatever you got to do to move from Zamir to Ramondre if they're not really all that useful, great assets anyway. Anthony, give Ayuk and Jalen Hyatt, get JSN and Quorum, yay or nay? Nay. I would not do this. I think Ayuk is Ayuk is so much more valuable to me, I think, than JSN and Blake Corum are together. So I think this one's pretty easily Brandon Ayuk for me. Vince, Puka and a late 25 first for CD Lamb. Oof. I think I would hold on to Puka because I think that first is a little bit more valuable in a start 11. You'll be able to get somebody next year that you potentially have the ability to plug and play next year. Whereas I don't think that the difference between Lamb and Puka is all that much, to where I think I would value just holding on to that extra first and doing something with that later. Jesus, my camera needs to focus. If this was like a start 8 or something like that, I would understand it more going for CD Lamb and just, trying to give yourself the best possible starting lineup. But I think because it's a start 11, I value that first a little bit more. Even if it's a late first, I still value that first a little bit more in a start 11 because I don't know. Like, there is a difference between Puka and Lamb, but I don't know if it's a first. So I would hold on to Puka in a late first. Yep, final answer. Mike, 12 team, 1 quarterback, start 8. Give Flowers, get Stroud. Watson, McCarthy. Interesting. Dude, my camera is freaking out. What the heck? Okay. I have eye autofocus on. It's a Sony DSLR camera, so like it has eye autofocus. So I think if it doesn't see my eye, then it doesn't know what the heck is going on. I think I would 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In a vacuum, to me, Flowers is in a 1 quarterback in a vacuum. Flowers is more valuable to me than Stroud. I get it from the standpoint that you just have Watson and McCarthy I don't know which one you want to play on. I mean, it's going to be Watson until McCarthy starts. And even then, I don't even know if you're going to want to play McCarthy over Watson unless McCarthy really shows out. So I understand the quarterback need, and I understand the not so much wide receiver need. I just feel like in a vacuum, I don't know if Stroud's the one I would go after. Like, can you trade Flowers for Kyler and something? Like, how can you get a little bit lower at the quarterback position than CJ Stroud, but have similar upside? Because I think that's the problem with CJ Stroud right now, is I think he's just overvalued a little bit to where he's not ultimately that much of a difference maker compared to a lot of other quarterbacks behind him. Like, I would rather, if you can get Kyler plus instead of just Stroud, then I would do that. If you can get Anthony Richardson plus instead of just Stroud, I would do that. If you could just go get Lamar instead, I would do that. If you could get Dak plus instead of Stroud, I would do that. Those, I think, are better options than just going to trade CJ Stroud or trade for CJ Stroud. I think at the end of the day, if really nothing is working for you, then I understand taking Stroud in this standpoint. But I think I would try to see if I could get a different quarterback instead with Zay Flowers. And then go on from there. Because you have an excellent team other than that quarterback position. So I 100% understand what you're trying to do here. I just don't know if Stroud is the best use of the Zay Flowers maneuver, or if you could go at something else. Like, if somebody has Kyler and Christian Kirk, and you could trade Flowers and a third for Kyler and Christian Kirk, that to me is like way better. Or even if it's somebody, a wide receiver lower than Kirk, or if it's another running back, like you get, Jalen Wright or somebody, with that quarterback, that might be better than just getting Stroud. Tally Ho with the $5 super chat took over a terrible orphan super flex with Baker, Geno, Penix, who is an undervalued quarterback to target that is getting overlooked, but could rise in 2 to 3 years. Fantastic question. Can't get Herbert. Owner is a massive Chargers fan. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Who is an undervalued quarterback to target that is getting overlooked, but could rise in 2 to 3 years? I mean, if you want overlooked, I think is there, because there's two separate questions I think for here. It's either undervalued, who's getting overlooked, and then there's the rise in 2 to 3 years part. I think those are two separate questions, because I don't think there's one quarterback that really fits that. If you're looking at undervalued and overlooked, I agree with here for the memes. I think Trevor Lawrence is on that list. I think Dak Prescott is on that list. I think Jared Goff is on that list. And yeah, that would basically be it. Now, if you're looking for but could rise in 2 to 3 years, I think that's a different question. I mean, you already have Penix, but Bo Nix could be on there. The other two, like Drake May, I think is a fantastic option for this. That could rise in 2 to 3 years. I think Drake May is like the poster boy for that. If you want an ultimate home run swing, that I don't know if he's necessarily undervalued and overlooked, and I don't think he's going to rise. Like, you're going to know this year, but it's Will Levis. If you want like the ultimate home run swing on a quarterback who has upgraded weapons this year, upgraded offense and offensive system, rushing ability that we didn't see last year, like Levis is the home run swing, but he's not going to be somebody that's going to rise in 2 to 3 years. He's probably not going to have a job in 2 to 3 years if he doesn't do well this year. So you'll know it this year whether or not he's good or not. But that's a home run swing for this year that I don't know if he fits in either of these categories, but I'll just throw his name out there. Trevor, Dak, Drake May, Jared Goff, Will Levis, and future first-round picks. That would be it. Future first-round picks to give you shots on, getting a quarterback next year or a quarterback in 2026. Like if you get Arch Manning or somebody like that, that would be how it goes. You like those names? Thank you. Absolutely, Mike. Thanks, bro. For sure, my man. Here for the memes. Yeah, Mostert and Zamir. Yeah, I would trade both those guys for Ramondre Stevenson. Yes, sir. Robert, different league than my first two questions. Sent Penix and Jaden Reed for Tua. Good deal. Love that deal. Because I think Penix is going to take a while. And I saw, I was watching one of the 4for4 videos because now I'm starting to do work for 4for4 because we're in redraft season now. But they had on, I forget, Andy Barons. They had on Andy Barons. And he was talking about Michael Penix and stuff like that. And he said that it would have to be a catastrophic season for Penix to see the field this year. Like their plan did not work with Kirk Cousins. So Penix saw the field. That's worst case scenario for Atlanta. I feel like that's the same way for next year and on. So I'm not ultimately in on Penix because I do think that he's going to see, he's going to take time to see the field over the next 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4 years and get Jordan loved. And so like if he's just kind of like an upside shot quarterback, and then you throw in an upside kind of wide receiver 3 that maybe could be a 2 in Jaden Reed, just go get Tua. Love that deal. I think this is fantastic. Perfect way to go get a quarterback that, tally ho, if you could do something like this, and just go get Tua, then I think that you could springboard from Tua a lot easier than you can Penix plus, so it's a potential option for you. I don't even know. You said you have a terrible orphan, tally ho. So if you don't, you might not even have Jaden Reed. But if you can pull something off like this, then go do that. Hats off to you, Robert. That was fantastic. 12:30, and we're at the end of the questions. That's how it is. We haven't gotten some of the regulars here today, though. So a lot of regulars, but I feel like we don't have all the regulars. Just a chill July Friday afternoon. The last afternoon of July. Then we'll be in August next week. This is also the last afternoon that you guys will see this backdrop. Because my wife and I bought a house, so we are moving into the house this weekend. So this backdrop is going to change. I have to set up my office over there. So this is the last time you'll see it. This is how it is. Outside of the couple of videos that I have recorded that are set to release next week. But the last Friday stream in this space. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of stuff's going on. We're doing a lot of adult things at the same time. Child, house. What the heck? Here for the memes. You want Ramondre so bad. Would you trade any of Moss, Connor, White, Mostert, or combine any of them with lesser pieces I've mentioned? Yeah, I would trade any 2 of them for Ramondre. I don't know if I would get to all 3, just because at a certain point I do value quantity over quality when you get down into like this range of the running backs for in season, because having more shots and more darts of missing injury or having more ability to fill in for injuries coming in, I do value the quantity over the quality at that point when you're down in these kind of ranges of running back. Now, obviously, if you could trade any 3 of these guys for Jonathan Taylor, then yeah, absolutely take the one individual guy. But Ramondre is not Jonathan Taylor. So that's the one difference. But if you can trade any 2 of them and go get Ramondre, then I'd be willing to do that. Because I'd rather just have Ramondre than 2 random shots of maybes that might not even be good with the opportunity that they have, a la Zamir White, a la Zach Moss, or one of those guys and an old guy who's on his way out because their team drafted a rookie this year, an explosive rookie this year, I might add, in Connor and Mostert. You prefer not to give up Connor, had him for years, and through thick and thin, he's been such a baller for me when healthy. Yeah, I understand that for sure. I've been a huge James Conner fan. I mean, I'm a Steelers fan, so I've been a James Conner fan since he's been here in Pittsburgh. And then I was all in on him whenever he moved over to Arizona, and have been on him for the past 2-3 years that he's been in Arizona. So I understand not wanting to give up Connor. So if you can give up any 2 of the other 3 guys, I think that's an absolute win for you. If you have to include James Conner, I'm not really opposed to it, because I do think that you get more longevity and perhaps better production with Ramondre too. But if you want to just nix Connor out of this group and just say, hey, you get any two of Moss, White, and Mostert for Ramondre. Pick your two and let's make a deal. I'm totally on board with that. Love that idea. Vinny, what's up, my man? Super stoked to be back for these. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. NFL season's right around the corner. We found out at the very beginning because it took me 5 minutes to Google search when the Hall of Fame game is. The Hall of Fame game is next Thursday, less than a week away from, I won't say meaningful football, but football. Ryan, happy Friday, all. Happy Friday to you, Ryan. Hope everything's going well. Hope the week has treated you all right. Excited for the weekend, TGIF. Vince, Herbert, McConkey, Benson, Freiermuth for Hurts, Devonta Smith in 2/3, 12-team Superflex, start 11. Looking at quarterback upgrades for competitive push. Guy is not interested in picks, much prefers players. Pat and Benson are depth. This is a pretty easy win for the Hurts and Devonta Smith side. I'll pretty easily take Hurts and Devonta Smith. I mean, if you just break this down, like I would take Devonta Smith over McConkey and Freiermuth, we'll say. So I would take Smith over those two, and then I would take Jalen Hurts pretty easily over Justin Herbert and Trey Benson, and you get 2 free third-round picks. Boom. So yeah, this is pretty easily the Hurts and Devonta Smith side for me. If he doesn't want picks, then give him these players. Those players are fine to give. Love that deal for you, man. Especially as a contender pushing towards 2024. That's a great move to make to get yourself in a better spot to compete this year with Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith. Love it. Make that deal if he's in on it. Peter would love to cheer up from T to Lamb, Amon-Ra, but it's going to be tough. Yes, it will be. But how much picks wise is too much? Would love to include 111 or 112, have all future picks and a lot of extra seconds. Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. I would be willing to send both of those first round picks and T Higgins. That is like the absolute most that I would go. So I'd be willing to get to that point. Obviously, if you can get the deal done for cheaper than that, then that would be fantastic. So if you can dangle the 111 and, you know, an extra second or a couple extra seconds, and then you keep the other first this year, then that would be fantastic. Or if it's T Higgins and like 3 seconds for Amon-Ra or Lamb, I don't think that would get it done. So that was a bad suggestion. You're going to have to include one of the first. I'd be willing to include both, but if you're able to get it done for less than that by doing one of the firsts and either a second or 2 seconds to where you get to keep the other first, then I'd much more be willing to do that. But I would be willing to give up T and both firsts for either one of those two guys. I think anything more than that is kind of too much. Yeah. So good luck. I hope you get that one done, because that's a fantastic upgrade. That's exactly what I would be trying to do. What I'm preaching to you guys about trying to do, just like upgrade your wide receivers, man. Just get these studs, these hammers, and then go win a championship. That's it. What's your take on the DLF Listener League Outhouse Challenge? So like are you talking about like the Kyler Murray trade from the trade show yesterday? I don't know if I'm allowed to say which side is ours, because that might influence the votes. Is that what you're talking about, Ryan? While I wait for you to reply, I'm going to hit Vinny real quick. All right, trying to bring the heat here. Ooh, all right. I lack depth on a squad. Does that matter? I've got Jacobs and Walker that I've been floating around to get a 2-for-1. Should I be stressing over depth? Starting lineup is solid. Benches mostly dart throws and Hollywood and Curtis Samuel. I'm not mad about lacking depth. I think depth is I shouldn't say strong. I think depth is mostly overrated and overvalued by a lot of people. And like I don't want to trade Jacobs for. I'll do the opposite of what Here for the Memes is doing. Like I would not want to give up Ramondre for any two of these kind of guys just in the name of depth, right? So Jacobs kind of feels synonymous to that. Like if you're trading away Jacobs for two kind of mediocre running backs, like you trade Jacobs for Jalen Warren and Blake Corum. I don't really know what that's doing for you. Like that hurt your starting lineup. I'm not really sure that really helped address depth. So I do think that depth is mostly overvalued by like a lot of people, especially at the start of the season too. I understand depth being more important as you get more through the season, but like we're here in July, almost August, season's just right around the corner. I'm not really all that concerned about it. If it's a good deal to do a 2-for-1, then I'm all for it. I think Walker's a fantastic player to try and do that with. I think I actually had Kenneth Walker in a tear down video recently. I don't remember what that tear down video was. Was it actually to Ramondre? No, who was it to? I don't remember. Not that one. Oh, who is that? Is that Pollard? From Kenneth Walker down to Tony Pollard? I think that's who it was. Or maybe even like Dave Montgomery. Like if you can do that, so like you can trade from Walker, go down to a David Montgomery or a Joe Mixon. You're probably gonna have to take on age, and that's probably where the value from the 2-for-1 is going to help you by picking up age at the running back position. But if you can do that and you still get a quality starter on top, and you get a good depth piece that could be like a good flex option, but is probably better, or based on your team, he's going to be sitting on your bench. Then I'm in on that. So I like that option. I don't know if Jacobs is going to ultimately work out for you because I feel like people are just kind of not really in on him, and I don't think the 2-for-1 is going to ultimately be worth it for you. But I think Walker is going to be the good option to where, like you said, if you have to take on age in the 2-for-1 by trading him for an older vet like a Pollard or a Monty or a Mixon or somebody along those lines. Plus something solid on top of that, then I would do that. Would you do Walker and a smaller piece for Deontay and Monty? Yep, that's basically exactly it. So like you're more or less maintaining production by moving from Walker to Monty, but then you are also upgrading whatever the smaller piece is, like if it's a third or something, but you're upgrading that extra piece for Deontay. So that's a fantastic way to go about it. This is the comment. Yeah. So yeah, if you can make that deal done, absolutely love that deal. Helps your depth, doesn't really affect your starting lineup. Love that. So for the Kyler outhouse challenge trade, I think I have this. I think at this point the Kyler side is winning fairly easily. I think last I counted it was 5-2, maybe even 6-2 to for the Kyler side. I'm fine talking about this now. Actually, I'm not gonna. Nobody's gonna go back and vote against us or for us or anything like that. I don't think. Our side was the Kyler side, so we did not want to give that side up at all. Like Russ and I were very vehemently against making this trade. And for those of you that don't know, in our listener league, we did an outhouse challenge where an outhouse challenge is people can send us a trade and then we leave it up to like viewers to vote on which side of the trade they would want, and whichever side won was the side that we would take. So if our side won, then we just wouldn't do the deal. If the other side won, we would take the trade. The trade ended up being Kyler Murray and Puka Nacua and Xavier Legette for Amon-Ra, Etienne, a first, and Adonai. Russ and I had the Kyler side. We were vehemently against this trade. But the analyzer had it 200 points in the Amon-Ra's favor, and it was the best deal that we got out of the trades to do that. outhouse challenge to put up for an offer. But we were vehemently against doing that for multiple reasons. And that maybe this is kind of like our thought process moment here. We are higher on Kyler Murray than the analyzer is for sure. Probably a lot of other people. So we didn't want to give up Kyler Murray for what we felt was less than market value. We didn't feel like there was a massive difference between Puka and Amon-Ra. Kind of similar to like the Puka and CeeDee Lamb trade, where a first round pick is not the difference between that that Peter threw up earlier. So we didn't see that much difference between Puka and Amon-Ra anyway. So really the rest of it was, and we obviously get over Adonai as well. And we were not getting a quarterback back is another big issue. So there's multiple things going on to where we did not want to give up an elite quarterback and not get a quarterback back. We did not want to give up an elite quarterback that we view as undervalued, that we value more than the community, more than the Dynasty Analyzer. We did not want to give up I'm not going to say a side grade at the wide receiver position from Puka to Amon-Ra, but it's more or less a side grade in the larger scheme of everything. So, and then Leggett over Adonai. So we didn't want to trade. The basis of it was we didn't want to trade Kyler for Etienne in a first. And I'm glad that people were voting for Kyler, because then that means that we could keep the Kyler side, because we did not want to give that up. Yeah, we did not want to give Steve the Kyler Marvin Harrison Jr. stack either. And especially when he didn't have to give up a quarterback to do that. So thank you to the viewers for having our back on that one, for letting us, at least at this moment, keep the Kyler Murray side. Aaron, that's a very cool way to spell Aaron. I like that. Who are you targeting early third in a Superflex tight end premium rookie draft if you have quality starters and a good bench? Fantastic question and a lot of options. Jalen Wright and Blake Corum are big ones. I like taking the shot on one of the two tight ends in Ben Sinnott or Jatavion Sanders. Ray Davis, obviously amazing. Jermaine Burton, Javon Baker. That's like a short list of names that I would really trying to go hard for, depending on who's there. Don't know if the tight ends are going to be there in a tight end premium. Don't know if Wright or Corum are going to be there, because they seem to be more like mid to late seconds. But Burton, Davis, Baker all have good shots of being there. And my order would go Davis, Baker, Burton. But I think all three of them are very good options. I'm just really high on Ray Davis. So, but yeah, of that whole group, hopefully one of them is there for you to take in the early third and have shots on them growing and being a future quality asset for you and becoming a quality starter. Jamie, with Gallup retired, I have an open roster spot in a league. Yeah, that was an interesting retirement, wasn't it? I wasn't really expecting that. That kind of came out of the blue. I got the notification. I was like, hasn't he been in the league for like 5 years or something like that? Like did he get a second contract? I mean, I think he had to have. But yeah, anyway, Gallup retired. That was surprising to me. Who would you rather pick up of Van Jefferson, Tyquan Thornton, Justice Hill, or Shoemaker? Ooh. Van Jefferson would be my pick on this. I would like to try to find a running back that I like, but I don't think Justice Hill is that running back. I don't know who else is available for you at the running back position that could be interesting. But out of this whole group, Van Jefferson at least has a shot at starter reps. Could potentially be the wide receiver 2 for Pittsburgh, behind Pickens, and has been okay when he gets volume. So I would take Van Jefferson out of this whole group. I'd be interested to know what other running backs are there though, other than Justice Hill. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Roman Wilson. Neither is Justin. Justin doesn't like Roman Wilson either. We prefer good wide receivers. Yeah. Hey, Addison, do you have a best ball draft strategy? Is this like just in like a underdog redraft best ball? Because to be honest with you, I don't play best ball. It's just I honestly I can't tell you why. I just don't have. It's not that I don't have interest in it. I just don't play it. I really don't know why. I could not tell you a good reason as to why I don't play best ball, like redraft best ball. Um, if you're talking from a dynasty standpoint, my best ball strategy isn't super all that different. Maybe I prioritize a lot more wide receivers just because the wide receivers are more like from a dynasty best ball standpoint, wide receivers are more stable year to year. So having more of them versus more running backs, which is my actual dynasty strategy, is to have more running backs than wide receivers. That might flip in a best ball because those wide receivers can go off at any point, and it's probably better to have guys like a Van Jefferson or like a I don't even know who else, like a Jawan Jennings or uh a Josh Reynolds or somebody like that, than a random handcuff running back. Because you're not setting the lineup. So you don't got to worry about when's the good time to play them. Then when's a good time to play this. You don't got to worry about any of that. So having more wide receivers would be better from a dynasty standpoint. It's absolutely better to have more wide receivers in a redraft standpoint too, if this is from a redraft. But yeah, it would basically be prioritizing the wide receiver position, grab your quarterbacks as well too, grab multiple quarterbacks, so then you have good streamable options every week. Running backs just kind of come as they go, and you want to kind of be lean at the running back position too. And then tight ends just come whenever. That's kind of my general best ball strategy. Yeah, get as many shots as you can of guys hitting your lineup. I like the don't roster the handcuff option because then there's very specific weeks when that happens, and that's why I like rostering them in regular dynasty leagues and regular fantasy leagues, because when you are able to start them because the starter went down, they're out that week, so now you can play them. But in a best ball setting, you don't have that option, so you can just roster more wide receivers who have more probability every single week of hitting your lineup than a backup running back. DeMarcado, Pierre Strong, or Zach Evans are the top ones available. Yeah, I'll take Van Jefferson. Rough league for DeMarcado. Would help to get Kraft off a taxi and put him there. I think I would leave Tucker Kraft on the taxi squad for now, and then I'd just pick up Van Jefferson, leave Tucker Kraft on taxi. But I like the thinking. Boom, 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 boom. But we got to the end of the questions. But we did make it almost an hour. Nice. All right. So yeah, if anybody still has any more questions or anything like that, or we can wrap things up here at like the hour mark. I do have to tear down this backdrop. We'll see how I put it all together at the house. I don't know how to do that. We'll see what it looks like. I've been kind of visualizing what the new office is going to look like. So we'll see. Red Brizzle in a 14-team PPR Dynasty League with roster restrictions need to keep 2 out of Anthony Richardson, James Cook, Trey McBride, or Kincaid. Roster restrictions. Gross. Is this Superflex? That's an important piece to this. Or does this have any tight end premium scoring or anything? Or is it just a 14-team, 1 quarterback PPR Dynasty League? So as I wait, so it's just 1 quarterback. Is that what? Is it Superflex? No. So it's just a 1 quarterback league. All right. So in a 1 quarterback setting, okay, cool. So in a 1 quarterback setting, I would not keep Anthony Richardson then, since you already have Josh Allen. I don't know when you would ever play Anthony. Like, I don't know why you would ever sit Josh Allen. I get that's for Anthony Richardson, but man, sitting Josh Allen at any point in time would be wild. So I would not keep Anthony Richardson. I would keep Trey McBride. Which bill do I keep? No tight end premium, right? Just a normal PPR. No tight end premium. I would probably keep James Cook then, since you already have 2 tight ends in Laporta, and then I would say keep Trey McBride. Then I would keep James Cook as your RB3. Cook and McBride. Final answer. Now, if there's some sort of like tight end premium or something like that, like if it was 1.5, 1.75, then I would probably keep both tight ends. But yeah, just a normal PPR, James Cook and Trey McBride would be my answer. Sweet. We got there. Nice. Ryan's got Waddle, Adams, and Collins and can only start 1. It's a 12-team start, 9 Superflex. Can only start 4 wide receivers weekly, and I'm having a hard time liquidating these guys to just get something of fair value or tier up. Adams would be the guy that I'd be trying to get rid of, even if it was for like a future, like if you can get a 26 first or something like that, then I'd be willing to do that. Or try to do some massive 2-for-1, like Waddle and Adams for Justin Jefferson or something like that, you know, like if you can do something crazy like that. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, the other side is that you have really good wide receivers that your opponents don't have. So now you have a leg up on them, even though you are not starting them all. You're preventing your other opponents from starting them against you. There is that angle. But yeah, Adams would be the one that I'd be trying to liquidate. You've got Lanham and JJ. Oh my God, dude. We'll go up and get Amon-Ra. just make it a trifecta, dude. Go up and get Amon-Ra. Or Chase or somebody. That's what I would try to do. Or like I said, just keep them on the bench. If you're not getting anything worth it, just keep them on the bench because then you're preventing your other opponents from starting them against you. That's how I'd look at it. Are there any running backs you would try to get with a 25 first now, or should I hold until mid-year since I'm competing in a 10-team? Oh, sorry, on a 1 quarterback start 10, full PPR. Still depending. Champ, Richardson, Barkley, Connor, Tyreek, Amon-Ra. There are certainly running backs that I would pay a 25 first for right now. Like if I could pay a 25 first for Bijan, then I would do that. But in realistic terms, I don't think that I would use my 25 first yet, unless you get some wild overpay. Like if you can pay a first for Jonathan Taylor or a first for Etienne or a first for Etienne, then I would do that. But I would not pay a first for like Josh Jacobs right now, or Ramondre Stevenson, or Derrick Henry, or Kenneth Walker. I wouldn't pay that first now, because what you might find yourself happening is that you don't actually need a running back that is priced as a first round pick. Maybe you can just go through the season, you get lucky with injuries, you're not really having any, but you want a little bit extra depth, and you can spend a second round pick for, trade a second to a team that isn't really going to make it this year, and you get Joe Mixon. You spend a second, you get Aaron Jones. In season, you can make that trade whenever you start to see where you are, where other teams are. You might find yourself actually not needing to spend the first, and rather trading away something a little bit cheaper to still get something that's of quality use to you. Yeah, that's ridiculous. We're not trading Zamir and a first and Watson for Kenneth Walker. We're not doing that. So, so I'd hold on to the 25 first. Don't worry about it right now. See where you're at in season, see where other teams are at mid-season, and maybe you can end up getting something cheaper, or maybe somebody, in season really wants to you get a deal on 25 first, and you're more likely to get a trade of, Etienne for a first, Taylor for a first, Saquon and something for a first. I don't know. You can get something maybe crazier in season, or not have to spend it at all. Would you rather have Leggett or Kendra in a 14-team Dynasty PPR? I'd rather have Leggett. First round wide receiver. And the most upside, I think, too. I think Kendrick's great. I think he's good and has opportunity if Alvin Kamara removes himself from the situation. But I'd rather take the shot on Leggett right now than Kendra Miller. Hollywood in a second for Kyron Williams. I will take Kyron Williams in this one. I think that's a good deal to go up and get somebody that I still believe has wide or RB1 upside in Kyron. I'm not necessarily worried about Corum, so to speak, for Kyron. So as long as Kyron stays healthy, I think this is a fantastic trade. I think you got, a top 15 at worst, RB1 at best, running back for Hollywood in a second. So yeah, give me Kyron. Michael has a 103 in a dynasty startup. You're torn between CJ and Jalen. I would take Jalen Hurts. Other option would be taking Lamar Jackson, but I would take Jalen Hurts of these two. For the rushing upside, we've seen it for multiple years from Jalen Hurts. His weapons are just as good when you look at AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley. I would take Jalen Hurts if it was me. Vince, 21 quarterback start 11. Run hero RB, or is there a solid tear down option for an RB2 and a flex wide receiver if you can use one of these wide receivers to tear down? Great question. I'm not opposed to running the hero RB strat, especially if you have all these other Olave would be my one choice for this. Start 10, 11. All right. So yeah, Olave would be my choice for this just because I think Olave has a decent chance of losing value at the end of the year if he produces like he's had for the past couple of years, and just kind of like DJ Moore / McLaurin's himself. DJ Moore on the Panthers, I should say, where he's just kind of like stuck in this situation. McLaurin, another example of that too. That's my ultimate fear for Olave. So if you could trade down from Olave, this could be something. Vince, if you saw my latest Dynasty Alternatives, my trade down, tier down video, I talked about Olave, and it was going from Olave down to Christian Kirk, and you're able to get that RB2 as that trade down. So if you haven't watched that video, that's like the perfect video for you right now. Here, I'll link it. It's this one. Literally talks about trading down from Olave to Christian Kirk. So there's your flex wide receiver, and you can get something fantastic on top of that to make the value work. So that would be almost exactly what I'd be trying to do in your situation. That RB2 could be, maybe it is Kenneth Walker, maybe it's Pacheco, maybe it's something crazy like an Etienne or an Etienne or somebody like that. If somebody's really high on one of them, or maybe you add an extra, it's Olave in a second for Etienne and Kirk. I don't know who I don't know what running backs the Kirk manager has, or if it's not Christian Kirk, somebody like that. Maybe it's Deontay, maybe it's Godwin, maybe it's Amari or somebody. Figuring out what running backs they have then. So I think what I would do is I would list out which wide receivers you're trying to go for as your flex option, and then find the teams that they're on, and then match the running backs with them. See if any of the running backs kind of fit the puzzle. That's how I would go about it. Then DK for Kirk and Corum. I think this is DK pretty easily for me too. If you're getting Kyron and then you want to get the handcuff in Corum, I think that DK is worth a lot more than Kirk and Corum. Like, to me, that's like 2 seconds for DK, and I think DK is pretty easily worth like a mid first, if not higher, if this is a one quarterback league. So I think this is selling low on DK Metcalf. I think this is DK pretty easily for me. Boom. All right. Vince, I'm super intrigued because your roster almost perfectly fit exactly what I was trying to do in that video. So now I want to see a real life example of something like that working for somebody. So please let me know if you're able to pull something off, or if you have questions about specific trades. drop them in the comments even after the stream is done if you're trying to work deals out, and I can help you and see where we can get to. I'm very interested in what if you're able to pull something off like that, Vince. Vinny's been in the same trade conversation lately. Been in talks with the deal sending Jacobs to the Kirk corner and trying to land a running back to attach to Kirk. But after today, might change that from Jacobs to Walker. Yeah, that's exact. You might be able to kind of do the same thing with Walker. You're not going to get as high of an RB. Obviously, because Walker's like in that tier that we're trying to go for. But yeah, Walker for Monty and Kirk. Or maybe it's Mixon and Kirk. Or I don't know if the value makes sense on that one. But yeah, something almost exactly like that. Yeah, Vince. Yeah, go for it. See what happens. Because the worst that can happen is they say no, or you say no if nothing happens. But yeah, Vinny, I'm interested in what you're able to pull off too. If you can do something similar. Even if it's not Christian Kirk, like Vinny, even if it's not Kirk, like you said, if it's Deontay or if it's Godwin or Amari or somebody in that kind of older, productive wide receiver range, that could work. Danny traded Etienne and Pickens for DK and Rashad White. See, this is where my ETN bias comes in. I do really like George Pickens as well. I think I might have kept the ETN and Pickens side. I don't think it's a bad deal, but I'm not a huge Rashad White fan. And if this is Zamir White, then it's even worse for me. So I think I would have preferred ETN and Pickens on this one. Sorry. I don't think it's bad. Like I said, I just might have preferred something else. Coming back round 2, should I land a Jordan Love Kyler or try to wait for a Dak Goff and instead land a star wide receiver like Puka or AJ Brown? Option 3, if you can get Kyler Murray in the second round, that is insane. Especially at the 210, right? Because you had the 1.03, so then that would be, if this is a 12-team league, that would be the 210. Even if it's the 207, if it's a 10-team league, that's ridiculous. Take Kyler Murray. Then the other option would be, how can you trade up from the third round and still get a star wide receiver? This is actually almost explicitly talked about this situation as well too in the best pick in every round of a startup. So there's that video. I believe the specific trades that I was trying to do in there was I was trying to grab 2 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, then trade up from the third round using a 7th or an 8th round pick, and try to get a stud wide receiver. So if you're able to grab 2 quarterbacks, then trade your 303 and your 810 or your 703, and then trade up to like the mid-second and get Amon-Ra or AJ Brown or Puka or Marvin Harrison, any of those guys really, then I think that's better for you. And then you just wait till the 4th round. Or I think actually my other advice was to trade out of the 4th round and down to the 5th, because then you would have 2 5th round picks and then you pick up an extra pick later. I think in like you either get another 8th or you get a 9th back. I think that was what I was looking at trying to do there. So you could try and follow that video too. It's just Jay, 8 teams start, 8 Dynasty, traded Fields, JSN, Javonte for 2 firsts, projected top 3 pick in 25 and 26, and a 25 third. Wow. Yeah, I will take the picks, especially if you think they're going to be top 3. And if they are ultimately top 3, and with that lineup, I mean, it's an 8-team league, but holy crap, man. That's just like the perfect way to move off of depth for potential more elite stud players. You just have to wait it out, I love that. Give me the first round picks over Fields, JSN, and Javonte. Great trade, man. And yeah, for pick flexibility, I like that option too. As a Jags fan, you have a slight bias towards Kirk. I understand that for sure. Guy with DK and Kamara have both on the block. How close would something like that be? Or should I focus more on a running back since Kamara is a 1 year projection? No, I'm not opposed to that one. If you can trade Olave for DK and Kamara, I would make that deal. I'd do that. Yeah. I'd probably send out a couple of them. Just like, yeah, send Olave for DK and Kamara, see what he says. Then I would send Olave for something in Christian Kirk, see what they say, something for Deontay, see what they say. Just kind of like send out feelers and darts and then see maybe one of them just hits accept and then you just get it. So that's what I would do. I would trade Olave for DK and Kamara. Dale, is it worth trading Benson or move James Conner? Amon-Ra for Neighbors and Benson? I would rather have Amon-Ra. He has Stevenson, Conner. Conner for Stevenson could be possible too. I mean, if you can flip Conner for Stevenson, that would be great. We actually just made a trade in the Watchers League where it was Conner and a first for Stevenson and a second. We got the Stevenson side on that one. I'm not opposed to keeping James Conner either because I think that Conner's going to be the workhorse this year as long as he's healthy. Benson's then going to take over next year. So if you need Conner for production this year, then you can just keep Conner. And then I maybe go after Benson in a different way. I wouldn't use Amon-Ra to do it. I'd rather have Amon-Ra. But if you could trade Conner for Stevenson, then I would do that. Or do like what Here for the Memes is doing, is trading Zamir and 310 for Ramondre. Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why I want Zamir over Ramondre. I don't think Zamir White is that good. So I think he's a trap. So we've already seen Ramondre do it twice. He was a top 10 fantasy running back 2 years ago, and he was a top 20 fantasy running back last year before the injury. So we've already seen Ramondre do it 2 years in a row. And there's no reason to believe that he won't do it again now. He's in a better offense, and he has the long-term extension too. So there's more. I have much, much more faith in Ramondre maintaining his RB1 role over the next year to possibly even 3 to finish out his contract. I wouldn't be shocked if Zamir is not even the starter by the end of the year for Vegas. So I want to move off of Zamir White as quickly as possible. And you're not even like gaining age on this really. I mean, you are slightly. You're gaining 2 years, but like Ramondre still feels young enough and has enough tread on the tire that I'm not worried about like the age thing so much. So I just much rather have Ramondre than Zamir White for redraft and for Dynasty. Ramondre and Rashee Rice might also be an option. How worried about Rice are we? It's been silent for a month now. I like this option too. I'd rather do the DK Metcalf trade just because there is an unknownness with Rashee Rice. But I do like it. I'm not ultimately really worried about Rashee Rice. I think once the suspension number actually comes down and we know how many weeks he's out, then his value is going to solidify itself. Even if it's for a full year, which I don't expect it to be for a full year, then we'll have at least a known timeline for Rice. And if it's 4, 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is, then we still have knownness there. His value might go up if his suspension is like only 6 weeks or only 8 weeks. His value might rise because now we have a known timeline for his situation. What's scary about Rashee Rice is that suspension might not come down until the end of the year. Kind of like what we saw, like this happened with Zeke like 8 years ago. Maybe it was 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever that was. Zeke got suspended late in the season. So you had him for the first 9 or 10 weeks, and then he got suspended for the rest of the year. So he didn't help you at all for a championship run. Now, obviously, Zeke's dynasty value went on to be totally fine because then he just came back and was an RB1 the following year. I was an RB1 the following year after that. Was an RB1 the following year after that. So Rice, from a dynasty perspective, doesn't really worry me that he's going to get suspended. It's just how is it timing wise for this year and in terms of you're looking at producing. So I'd much rather have the DK and Kamara trade. There might be other trades that you can get done that I would prefer to do than this one too. But I'm not necessarily opposed to this trade. It's just you're adding a little bit more unknownness of the Rashee Rice situation. You forgot about that Zeke suspension. Wasn't it like a hot tub or something like that? Like he was in a hot tub with like girls or something. I don't know. I don't even remember what the whole situation was. Suspension. Oh no, it was domestic abuse. But yeah, it was something about like he was in like a hot tub with girls or something like while he was suspended or after he was suspended or I don't remember. It was a first time domestic violence thing for Zeke. And he got hit with it mid-season. So that kind of sucked. That could happen to Rashee Rice. BC 12-team Superflex had PPR traded DK and Javonte for Etienne. Interesting. I actually like this from both sides. I like the trade going to get Etienne. I've been like, you want to talk about like risers in my rankings? Etienne's been flying up my rankings. So I love this trade to go get Etienne. The upside for your team just went massively through the roof if he has a big breakout year. So yeah, I like it. I'll take Etienne. Pulled a top down on a girl in the parade or something. Oh yeah, that's what it was. It seems so menial compared to all these other violations and assaults and stuff that all these other people are getting. Anyway. Yeah. James, through draft and trades, I now have Adonai Mitchell, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and Xavier Worthy. Any of these scream bust that I need to move off of? I wouldn't say they scream bust that you need to move off of. I think and moving off of them, like it's all about getting a good price back for them. Like I would love having Malik Neighbors on my rosters. I'd love having Brian Thomas Jr. I'm slightly concerned about Xavier Worthy, but I'm hopeful that of all the teams that would be able to use him in a just non field stretcher only role, that it would be Andy Reid and the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And even if he's just that in that offense, like that still could be really phenomenal for Worthy. But my concern about Worthy coming into the NFL was that he might get typecasted as a field stretcher only. And I think that he could be a lot more. And I'm hoping that the Chiefs bring that out of him. And that he's not just like MVS. Like Hollywood might just be MVS and Worthy might be a little bit more. But that was my fear with him. I still have that fear lingering in the back of my head, but it's nothing to really make me like move off of him because it screams bust. Adonai, I like Adonai in Indy as well. It's just I'm not sure what his target situation is going to be. Right, obviously he's going to be behind Michael Pittman. I would like to say that he's ahead of Josh Downs in terms of targets, and he fits that offense really, really well. I mean, like he's like the Alec Pierce replacement, and Alec Pierce ran I think like the second most routes on the outside last year according to PFF. So if Adonai is going to be doing that with a healthy Anthony Richardson and his arm, like he could have really big time upside. So I like it doesn't scream bust to me. It just Adonai feels like he just might be somebody that we are just kind of maybe waiting on, or it might not come to fruition, or maybe he turns into Mike Williams, or maybe we have to, I don't know. Like, but I think all four of these guys are really good guys to have, and none of them really scream bust that make me need to move off of them. To fully answer the question. Eric, 12 teams start 10, Superflex, PPR, half, tight end, premium. Are you contending with this roster? Yes, I would say that you are. You have, I think, an anchor QB1 and a really good QB2, plus a nice QB3 in Bryce. Your running backs are obviously your weakest point, but you have enough of them that I think that you're going to be fine throughout the year with starting Javonte and Brian Robinson, and maybe when Connor gets hurt, because it feels like it's just going to happen at some point, you can plug Benson in. I think Zeke is going to be a solid like flex option for you. Eckler might be solid as a flex. Maybe Zach Moss gets hurt and Chase Brown gets more of the backfield in those games. So I think your running back room is good to compete the way it is because you have a lot of good names. Wide receivers are obviously locked down by Nico and Pittman. You got Cooper Kupp coming back from injury. You got Deontay. You got the upside of Ladd McConkey, Rashee Rice, some other youth that you mentioned. Andrews, top 3 tight end. So I think you are competing for sure. And then we'll have to see kind of how the season plays out for you. If injuries kind of hit you hard or not, like you depending on how you start or depending on how your team ultimately is producing with and without injuries, you might want to shed some of that age, or maybe you want to try to make some more moves to continue competing. You'll kind of have to see that once we get through September and October. But I think as of right now, I would treat yourself as a contender, but I wouldn't make moves that push you more towards contender and by that I mean, like, I wouldn't make moves now that drastically increases the amount of age that you have on your team in hopes of becoming a contender. I think that you are a 5th seed right now. I would put you in like the 5th seed, maybe 4th, maybe 3rd if things go well. And then depending on how the season goes, maybe you can push yourself even further. That's kind of where I would put you. A good 5th seed, not like a middle of the pack 5th seed, a good 5th seed. Wide receivers are Amon-Ra, London, Puka, Marvin Harrison, Pittman, and more. So DK will not be lost, and my RBs are, well, best to focus on my wide receiver depth as your RBs make you sad. Yeah, I like it. Go take Etienne. And you think BTJ is going to be a bust based solely on the fact that you really like him? I will give you a little bit of consolation on this in the sense that, well, I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. is the same type of wide receiver as all these other guys. I think I've kind of been playing around with this thought idea process for the past 5 or 6 months that there might be such a thing as a too analytical wide receiver. And I think that's like Sky Moore, I think fits that. I think Marquise Lee fit that. Lee Evans might have fit that. Honestly, I don't even know who Lee Evans is, but I'm not old enough for that. But he always comes up in my wide receiver stuff that is like a bust. Like it's like, oh, which wide receivers were really, really good that ultimately ended up busting? And it's like Kelvin Benjamin, and then like Lee Evans is on that list from like 20 years ago. Yeah, I mean, his analytical profile was phenomenal. But he was also small. He was 5'11", under 200 pounds. So like, again, there might be a thing as a too analytical wide receiver that I think that most of these wide receivers kind of fit into. And I don't think BTJ fits into that. Judy, I think we look back and I think we remember Judy as a much better prospect than he actually was. I don't even think that Judy was that great of a prospect. He actually graded out as the wide receiver 7 in the class for me. Now, like Lamb and Justin Jefferson were like top tier of the 2020 class. Then we had Jalen Reagor. We don't want to talk about Jalen Reagor. But then you had Ayuk and Pittman and LaVisca were the other 3 wide receivers that graded out ahead of Jerry Jeudy. And then you kind of had a teardrop from there. Like from there, you got Ruggs and Mims and Tyler Johnson and Gabe Davis and everybody like that. Claypool. So I think we remember Jerry Jeudy as a better prospect than he actually was. So I think I'd give you a pass on that one. But I think the other receivers, I think they just fit into this like too analytical mold. And I don't think BTJ is the same as that. I'm hoping not, because I really like BTJ as well too. What do you think about Neighbors, Pitts, and a late 25 first for Amon-Ra? Where was your... Yeah, so you have Andrews and McBride. Dude, if you could trade Pitts and a first for Amon-Ra, I think that would be insane. I'd probably still do it with Malik Neighbors. I'd be much more willing to do it with Kyle Pitts. If you can do it with Pitts, I think that would be great. Do you think Ladd or Keon will bust out in 2024? I like both in later rounds. I think Ladd is severely overrated, and I think Keon has upside, but he's also not a good prospect. So they're probably just two guys that I won't really have on my team. I think Ladd is severely overrated. But I've talked about that extensively on this channel. People are probably nauseous every time I talk about Ladd McConkey. Showing my age with Lee Evans was Buffalo's first round pick in 2004. Hype was all he was. Kelvin Benjamin had that really good first year. Then he got fat, then fatter. Yeah, Kelvin Benjamin had that Eddie Lacy lifestyle. In a league where you can keep up to 5 players, and for each player you keep, you start drafting 1 round later. Okay. Okay. First 5 rounds are linear, then the rest is snake. You have the second pick in each round. Deciding on keeper strategy, I'm tempted to keep no one and take Marvin Harrison Jr. with my first round pick. The keepable guys on my team are Gibbs, Saquon, McBride, Dell, Higgins, quarterback. Most teams traditionally keep 1 to 2. Best teams keep 4 to 5. Should I drop everyone and get Marvin Harrison Jr. and hope that no one else drops everyone? So my second pick would be Gibbs, or should I just hold my guys and let someone else get Marvin Harrison? All right, hold on. I'm digesting everything, and I'm going to do that while I hydrate. All right. First 5 rounds are linear. The rest is snake. You have the second pick in each of the first rounds. I think just based on the players on your team, I think I would give up Marvin Harrison Jr. I think I would keep Jahmyr Gibbs. I'd probably keep Saquon and McBride. And if you want to keep a quarterback, maybe then that's fine. Or if you want to toss all 3 of them back and then just hope that you get one of them, then I would do that. That's fine too. But I don't think that I would mortgage Gibbs, Saquon, and Trey McBride just to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. and then potentially not get them back. So it's kind of like I think I would approach this like middle of the pack, just kind of like how you said, most teams traditionally keep a couple players. So I'd probably put yourself in that same situation and keep Jahmyr Gibbs. Saquon and McBride would probably be the 3 that I keep. And then unfortunately you don't get Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think he's that much more worth it to where you are losing out on the other 3 players that you already have on your roster. That's how I'd look at it. Remember when we were wrapping up at 12:55? Facts, dude. No, it's all right. People come back in. People join at different points in time. And I got nothing else to do today except tear down this office. So we're just answering questions. What is your issue with Ladd McConkey? All right. Hold on. I do need to drink more water for this one. Does anybody else want to talk about it in the comments? So yeah, for sure, Nick. And if I'm missing context or anything like that, that's just for me, like in like a 30-second trying to digest the rules of your league and the team that you have. So maybe I'm missing some context or something. But I think that's how I would approach it with Gibbs and everybody versus Marvin Harrison. All right, what is your issue with Ladd McConkey? So I think Ladd McConkey is a severely overrated prospect. I understand that on film that he looks great. He's a great route runner, had really good per route analytics. But that's kind of my issue, is that it's on a per route basis. So in my opinion, if he was that good, he should have been on the field more. He should have been more productive. And I get that he was playing behind Brock Bowers. So either Brock Bowers is like massively, massively insane, and we're actually undervaluing Bowers even more because he's held back a superstar in Ladd McConkey. To point where McConkey wasn't even producing on the team. Or Bowers is still an elite prospect and Ladd McConkey is just not good because McConkey did not produce. For reference, Ladd McConkey does not have a breakout age. He did not break out in college. He never had a season where he paced for more than 800 or more than 850 yards in a season. That was while playing in Georgia offenses that threw for over 4,000 yards. So he never basically paced or did or accounted for more than like 20% of Georgia's receiving volume, whereas Brock Bowers was like doing all of it, right? And Adonai Mitchell was there for the first 2 years, but Mitchell didn't play at all in 2022. Basically, he played like 3 or 4 games with injury. Jermaine Burton was there, but they were all rookies or freshmen in 2021. Then Jermaine Burton transferred. So it really was just like McConkey and Bowers, and McConkey did not produce at all. No receiver who does not have a breakout age has ever produced for fantasy football. And I get that he landed in a good situation to where he could be the wide receiver one. But I think that the Chargers now looking at 2024 are going to be super run heavy. I think that when they do throw, I don't even know if Ladd McConkey is the best player on the team. I think Josh Palmer right now is the best receiver on the team. So I just I think McConkey is overrated because I just don't think that he's that good. I've seen people comp him to Emmanuel Sanders, and I understand that. And if you look at Emmanuel Sanders' career stats, you say, oh, wow, Sanders had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. He was fantastic. The problem, though, is that Emmanuel Sanders, it took him 4 years to get to that point. And the only reason he got to that point was because he played in two of the greatest offenses we've ever seen in recent history in Peyton Manning Bronco offenses when he threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. And Emmanuel Sanders was like the 2 on that team with Demaryius Thomas and Julius Thomas, and Decker might have been on that team. So Peyton might have been supporting 3 options at that point, and Sanders wasn't even 1 or 2. So I think Ladd McConkey is very overrated because if you look at Emmanuel Sanders' numbers without Peyton Manning, they're like 700 yards a season, and it's just kind of like meh, And Justin Herbert's fantastic, but I think the offense is going to hold back a lot of these options in LA. Not to mention the fact that I think McConkey himself is just not as good as people think he is. That's my McConkey spiel. So there it is. Dale with the $5 super chat. Appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for the super chat and support. Thank you. Ross has been offered Marvin Harrison Jr. for Garrett Wilson straight up. I'm torn. Wilson is your wide receiver 1. Other wide receivers are Higgins. I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. over Garrett Wilson. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better prospect. He has better quarterback longevity, might be in a better offense. I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. He's younger by a couple years. You get that back a little bit. I'd take Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's see. Half PPR, 12-team, 1 quarterback, start 10, blah, blah, blah. So not ideal. Rookie draft is next week, and I have the 2.03. Should I trade it for a producing vet or target Ricky, Polk, or someone like that? I mean, your starting lineup is really good. Your starting lineup is really, really good. You have solid second. Like Moss is all right. I like Ferguson. Ferguson is actually a really, really good tight end too. I really like that. So in a 12-team, 1 quarterback at the 2.03, yeah, you probably are getting someone like Polk or Leggett or I think if I were you, I would try to flip that for a producing veteran. I'd try to see if you can go get, the theme of today apparently has been how can you go get Christian Kirk or Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper for a second? Can you get David Montgomery for that pick? Can you get Ramondre Stevenson for that pick? Can you get Joe Mixon for that pick? Like that's what I would be trying to do probably with the 2.03. If you have to take a rookie, then I'm fine just taking a rookie and just hoping like Jalen Polk, I think is a good pick there. But if you can trade it for a good producing veteran that has some longevity, like I wouldn't flip that pick for a 1-year rental. I want a little bit of longevity in there, but if you can do that, then I'd go for it. Big Stowey's ridden Tyreek and Kelsey to a bunch of good years. Last year, traded for Derrick Henry for a stretch run and lost 5 games in a row to get bounced from the playoffs. Oh my gosh. That is heartbreaking. 5 in a row. If you were to trade Tyreek, Kelsey, and Henry away separately, what would you be looking for? I'd try to flip Kelsey and Henry for first round picks. Maybe you can get a little bit more on top if a team's really competitive. But I think that's a good place to start, is like a first, and maybe a first and a little bit something extra on top, little Salt Bay on top of that. For Henry and Kelsey, I think are good options. Tyreek, you're going to need. I think with Tyreek, I would probably try to see how I can move him and side grade him to a younger wide receiver. How can I move Tyreek over to Ayuk or Waddle or Neighbors, or add something to him and go up and get Puka or Garrett Wilson? That's what I would probably be trying to do with Tyreek. I don't know if I want picks for him. I mean, if you're getting picks, I want at least 2 first-round picks, probably maybe even more, especially if they're a contender first, and especially if it's like, I'll give you my 25 and 26 picks for Tyreek. I'd be like, nah, I want more than that. But I think with Tyreek, I'd be trying to side grade him. Kelsey, you could side grade as well too. You could try to see how you can move Kelsey. Maybe you can get Hawkinson for Kelsey. That would help for a teardown rebuild, because then you don't get the points from Hawkinson this year as he's coming back from injury. Maybe and the Hawkinson manager maybe is trying to compete and he wants Kelsey. Maybe you could do that. That could be a good trade. Henry, though, seems like if you can just get a first for Henry, that'd work. I don't think you could really side grade him for anything good other than just a first. Any idea on what the plans could be for Steelers and Seahawks? They have their starters, but also young backups. Should I reach out to get Howland Fields for somewhat cheap in Dynasty leagues? I don't think the long-term starter for either team is on the team right now. So I'm not like actively going out and buying Sam Howell. I think Justin Fields is fine, because Fields might end up getting. I've been kind of comparing him to Marcus Mariota, where after Mariota kind of busted out in Tennessee, he went and backed up in Vegas and Philly for a couple years. Then he got his bridge quarterback shot in Atlanta. So I think the same might happen for Justin Fields for some team in a couple years that maybe is like aging out. Like maybe Justin Fields is the starter for the Jets in a couple years after Rodgers retires. Or maybe he's the quarterback for the, did I say wide receiver? Quarterback for the Jets after Rodgers retires. Quarterback for the Rams when Stafford moves away, or something like that. You know, that might be a situation where maybe he's taking over for some really old veteran in the league right now in a couple years. So if you can get him for cheap, then I'm not opposed to it. But like, I wouldn't actively be going out and getting him, because I don't think the long-term starter's on either one of their teams right now. Would you do Zamir and Richardson for Burrow and Ramondre? Yeah. Yeah, I'd take Burrow and Ramondre. Tanker, Najee, Warren, and Mostert. Tank, though. Yeah, just package all that up into a young wide receiver. I'll take Tank, though. Matthew, Superflex start 9, tight end premium, 1.0 tight end premium. Offered Pitts for Bryce Young and Jatavion Sanders. Need tight end bad. I would take Hurts, Murray, and Daniel Jones. Yeah, I would take Kyle Pitts in this one. Give me Kyle Pitts there. That might be a good trade for both sides. I'll take Kyle Pitts. Sent the SC late for the team breakdown. Oh, okay. Dale, we got you. All right, back to it. This is the team I traded Fields in a 25 first for Dak. Allen, holy crap. Kyron, Swift, Connor, Corum, Amon-Ra, Waddle. Wide receivers look good. You got Kincaid and Hawkinson. I like that. I did see you got Pop Douglas, Thielen, Dobbins, Darnold, Aiden. Love the move to go get Dak Prescott. I think that move right there moved you to be more of a contender than you were already. Honestly, you might not have been a contender before that, and now you are. Like Kyron, like Swift, like Corum, and Connor. Or like Corum as the handcuff to Kyron. So if Kyron gets hurt, you can just plug and play him. You'll always have 3 running backs, basically, unless they both get hurt at the simultaneously. Obviously, wide receivers are great. Locked down with Amon-Ra, Waddle. 2 top 12 potentially guys, 1 top 5. Kirk, Deontay, steady Eddies, wide receiver 3s with wide receiver 2 upside. Kincaid and Hawk is great. You're starting 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, this team looked pretty good. And again, like I said, like that Dak trade, I think, made you a contender this year. So depending on the rest of the draft picks that you have, if you still have the rest of your 25s, like your second and third, you can make some other moves in season. But I'd see how this team treats you to start September and see what happens. And maybe you start out the year 4-0, 3-1, whatever it is, and go from there. Then see what moves you have to make from that. But I really, really like the team, Dale. And thank you for the $5 super chat. I'm sorry I didn't get the memo of that was attached with the thing. So I apologize for getting to you late. but appreciate the super chat and the support a lot. And keep cranking out this team. I love it. Athlete critique, 12-team Superflex, start 8. Thoughts on trading Deontay for Amari, lateral move or higher upside with Amari? I think it's a lateral move. I don't really understand. And that's just whatever. I'd rather just keep I don't like 1-for-1 trades, especially 1-for-1 same position trades. Because they just don't feel like they really do all that much. Like, unless you're like actively moving from like a descending player to an ascending player, or an injured player for a non-injured player, or you're rebuilding and they're competing, or vice versa. Those don't really, those are the exceptions, I should say, to the one from my brain is fried after going for almost 2 hours. Those trades make more sense to me in the 1-for-1. But this trade, like, you have 2 older, solidly producing, probably wide receiver 2s. It's a lateral move to me. Don't have a preference between the 2, so I just wouldn't do it. So unless there's an incentive on the other side, like you get Amari in a third, or Amari and some handcuff, like you get Amari and Tyrone Tracy, or Amari and Braylon Allen, or Amari and Antonio Gibson, then do that trade, because then you get something on top of it. But the 1-for-1 here just doesn't make sense in my opinion. You're still going? I just unpinned the post on FLA because I thought you were done long ago. Dude, the question stopped for like 2 minutes about an hour ago, and then they just kicked in. I got the Central Time lunch goers, because it's almost 2:00 here on Eastern Time, but around 1:00 is when the show picked back up. So it was noon Central Time for everybody working. We're almost done though, Brian. We're almost done. 10-team Superflex, thoughts on trading JSN for Benson in a second? It feels like an unnecessary tear down. I think I'd rather just hold on to the upside of JSN. I like the upside of Benson. I like getting the second attached, but I think I'd rather just have JSN. So I'd rather just hold on to him. Sorry, I'm trying to think of like more context to add to this, but like I said, I've been going for almost 2 hours, so my brain's kind of fried. But we're getting there. Sawyer, any moves that I should try to make with my roster going into the season? 12-team PPR Superflex. Tight end, check. Wide receiver looks pretty solid. How many players do you start on a weekly basis? Like, is this like a 9, start 9, start 10, start 8? Because that could influence something here too. I already know one move I'm making. I'm trying to see what else. Start 9. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Zamir would be gone. I would trade Zamir. I get that he's probably like your bench player. Oh. You already knew the answer. Tried to move Zamir already. So what's probably more likely going to need to happen is you're going to need to use Zamir to upgrade something else. And you might have to take a value hit, so to speak, to do it, but it might be worth it in the long run. So if you could move Zamir and Devonta Smith, and you can get Brandon Ayuk or something, or Jalen Waddle. Can you try something like that? That would be a move that I would try and do. I'd love to get a better tight or QB2. I think having the ability to stream Watson and Baker every week is going to be nice. Obviously, Mahomes locked down your QB1. But I think you're all right with Watson and Baker. You just got to make the smart decision between the two every single week. So if you make the wrong decision some week, that might burn you. But as long as you're accurate with that, I think you'll be really good. Obviously, Bijan locking down the RB1's great. Kyron, I think, is going to be an RB1 again this year. You have options with Chase Brown and Gus Edwards and Ray Davis. Your wide receivers are locked down pretty well with Nico Pittman, Smith, Kirk, JSN, upside shot on Keon Coleman, Andrews, check, top 3. So I think that you have a good contending team. There might just be little micro moves that you need to make to kind of maybe shift some of your roster balance or shift your way to being more competitive or more productive, I should say, that lends you to being more competitive. But I think as of right now, it's pretty solid. It's just Zamir White, dude. Zamir White. But you already know that. I can't really think of any other. I don't think I would use any of these wide receivers to go get another quarterback. I don't know what draft capital you have, if you still have a first or a second. The other things that you could try to do is just move up to do a 2-for-1 at the wide receiver spot. Can you move Devonta Smith and JSN and move up and get, Tyreek or Devonta Smith and JSN or Devonta Smith and Keon Coleman and go up and get Ayuk like that or Waddle or somebody, no 25 first. Okay. So yeah, so then maybe in season you can upgrade something with that second or go buy like a Joe Mixon or something for this with the second, see where you're at. But I think you're pretty fine to take this team, I think, into the season and see what happens. I like that. And I like the idea of hoping that Zamir can pop off for the first couple weeks. Who do they play? Because this could be the other scary part. Week 1 is against the Chargers. Oh. If that Chargers defense did not fix their run issues that they had last year. Now, week 2 is against the Ravens. That's scary. But week 3 is against the Panthers. So there might be, maybe if he has 2 good weeks out of the first 3, we kind of give him a pass because it's the Ravens and they're away. That's possible. That week 1 against the Chargers, though, might be the way to sell out. I like that idea. I just accepted a trade. Now my starters are Hurts, Pollard, Benson, CD, Chase, Marvin Harrison, Pitts, Pickens, Olave, Murray. Man, I love this year's startup draft. Very grateful for advice from you guys this year. That's fantastic, dude. I love that. Yeah, grabbing Pitts in there. That was the last piece, like you said. Pitts was the last piece for sure. Love that, man. And we're thankful for you. Thank you for the support and everything as well. Hopefully that team can take you all the way to championship time. Any realistic hope for Fields? I don't think that he's going to see the field at all this year unless Russell Wilson really, really sucks. And I don't think Russell Wilson's going to really, really suck. So he's going to have to get hurt. So, I think it's just he's just going to be a journeyman backup for a couple years, and then maybe he'll get a shot at a bridge QB role on a different team. But I think he just kind of is what he is right now, which is like a really high upside backup quarterback. Smith and Zamir was your package that you've been trying to move to. Maybe you have to move up. Maybe it's got to be Smith and Pittman. Maybe you get a slightly better wide receiver by doing that. Chargers run D might not have improved, but I assume with Harbs in town, total plays and TOP would dramatically increase or decrease for LA opponents with the Bolts moving to. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too. So if you go from that point of view, not to mention that I think the Raiders offense in general is just going to suck. And plus the Raiders defense is really good. That team just might be like 10-7. Or that game might just be like 10-7. That game might suck. And Zamir might not get much going on. That's a good way to look at it, Brian. One quarterback, 12 teams start 8 is going to start 9. How does that impact depth and starting lineup? In my opinion, it really doesn't all that much. I like in a start 8, you probably were prioritizing your starting lineup a lot more than you were depth. So adding just an extra guy just means that you just need one extra flex player. So I wouldn't really go for all that much added depth, especially if that start 9, that extra starting spot is just a flex. Then it gives you a lot more flexibility. If it was like an extra wide receiver spot, then maybe that moves you to wanting to have an extra wide receiver instead of an extra running back. But if it's just an extra flex, I wouldn't worry about it all too much. I would still prioritize starting lineup for sure. Because I would imagine, unless your team was super heavy starting lineup, that you probably do have a couple extra players that you could throw in on a weekly basis, and that'll allow you to still maintain the competitive nature of your lineup. In my opinion, it doesn't really impact depth and starting lineup all that much. Just kind of feels the same. I prefer start 9 over start 8 too. So I think you've moved yourself to a more optimal lineup position for your league. Boom. All right. I'm not leaving it up for any buzzer beater questions. I'm going for nearly 2 hours. I appreciate everybody for hanging out for the past 2 hours. I guess questions are starting to pick up now that we're going to get into August here. The fantasy season is right around the corner. Hall of Fame game. We'll have a football game played by the next time that we see each other next Friday. We'll have something to talk about a little bit with the Hall of Fame game. Not sure if it's going to be anything important to talk about or significant, but it'll be football. So we'll see. But yeah, appreciate everybody for hanging out for the past 2 hours. Like I said, I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of your day for Friday. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you guys are Marvel fans, please go see Deadpool and Wolverine. That movie was a 10,000, a million out of 10. It was fantastic. The best Marvel movie that I've seen in a very, very long time. The best Deadpool movie for sure of the 3. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I'm not going to say anything else other than just like it was great. So if you're a Marvel fan, please go watch Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend. But yeah, that'll do it for y'all. Appreciate all you guys hanging out. Appreciate you, Vinny, too. And go turn on your FLA alerts. That's a big one. They're firing up real soon. God, I've missed these. They've made me had to download Sleeper. I can't wait to delete Sleeper and get Fantasy Life for sure. So turn on your FLA alerts as we get into football season here. It's happening. All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a fantastic Friday, fantastic weekend. We'll see y'all.